My book, Happy Campers, 9 Summer Camp Secrets for Raising Kids Who Become Thriving Adults, is not just the story of my own camp, but is the story of many camps all over the world who are promoting the social and emotional growth of kids through intentional strategies. This bonus episode is a recording of one of my Happy Campers interviews with a camp director from one of the day and resident camps who were in my series that was originally aired on Facebook Live and is also available in video form on my website at sunshine-parenting.com. Enjoy this conversation with a camp director who runs an amazing program. Hello and welcome to the Happy Campers interview series. Today, I'm really excited to have the owners and directors of Carmel Valley Tennis Camp, Susan and Steve, on to talk all about their great program in Carmel Valley. So welcome, Susan and Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Why don't we start just by having you both introduce yourselves, talk about your background, how you ended up running a tennis camp.
Okay.
Good.
All right, I'll start. Okay. Hi, I'm Susan Reeder, and I am one of the owners and directors of the camp. And I started, I was a junior tennis player. I played and excelled in the juniors. And at that time, it was actually before the women's tour, so it was a long time ago. But I did well in tennis and really enjoyed it. And then after college and after working actually in international banking for a little while, I got back into the tennis business because the tennis boom had happened. And I realized that it was kind of like an opportunity definitely for a woman also who had the background in tennis that I did as a player. And so I started teaching. I was in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I was head pro. I didn't start as head pro at all. I started at the bottom teaching there. And I started teaching, and I was like the only woman on the staff at that point. And they were like, Susan, take the women and the children. And I was like, okay, fine. And it was great because I really did learn how to teach, which was wonderful. And one thing led to another. I then coached Eastern Michigan women's tennis team. And then I moved to California and continued to stay in the tennis business. I really did enjoy it. I taught. I also managed a club, and I was a tennis director at another big club. So I kind of built this whole thing with tennis, but I'd also really loved the camp. And I'd actually knew about the camp. I'd gone to tennis camp when I was a child. All my other siblings and my mother and everything all had a background in residential camps and sleepaway camps, general camps back east. I went to the tennis camps because that's what I was doing. And so when I met the people that used to own Carmel Valley Tennis Camp, they asked me to come down and work in a year-round position and be one of the directors of the camp. And I was fascinated with it, and because I'd loved camp. And so anyway, that's how it all started. And actually then, I worked for the past owners, and then Steve and I bought the business, and then we ran it at the site where it used to be, which was a leased facility. But then we bought 38 acres in Carmel Valley 21 years ago and built a camp, which was a complete dream. I feel like the luckiest person in the world.
Oh, wait, that's so awesome. But wait, a quick question. I didn't even know this about you because we're friends and we've talked a lot before. You became the head pro at the place when you were the only woman pro where you started?
It was actually, and after a while, I was there for a couple of years, but it's basically kind of was like, I think the term was at that point because it was like administrative head pro. Okay. So it was like, I think it was, but it was great. I mean, and all these guys played at the University of Michigan, and the guy that owned the club was coach University of Michigan men's tennis team. So it was this great indoor club. And so, yes, that was my title. It wasn't after a while. I think it was more, kind of the whole thing, women and children. I opened a child care center which really increased actually our indoor play because that's what we needed to do at that time. So I was always interested. Actually, I love teaching. I love that part of it. And I love coaching. I did that too. But I was also interested in the business part of it.
That is just a great story. Okay, Steve, you also have a lot of experience with both tennis and working with kids. Talk about your background.
Right. Well, I grew up in the Central Valley in Stockton, and my dad was a teacher, a high school teacher, and coached basketball, football. So I grew up around sports, and I grew up playing tennis and also basketball. And then I became a better tennis player than a basketball player. So I had the opportunity. I went to UC Berkeley, to Cal, and had the opportunity to play tennis there for 4 years, which was a phenomenal experience. It was in the early 70s, and I always say I got 3 educations. One was my academic education, another one was playing tennis, and the third was living in Berkeley at that time. So it was great. Though it was a really great experience, but I really didn't anticipate doing anything further. It was the beginning of the men's tour, but I wasn't at a level that I felt like I really wanted to go out and kind of spend that kind of time to do that. And I really like teaching. So I got a teaching credential at Cal Poly, and then I started teaching at an independent school in Pebble Beach called Robert Louis Stevenson School. And at the time it was an all boys school. The first year I was there, I lived on campus. And I taught biology. My degree's in biology, so I taught biology, introductory physical science, and I coached basketball and tennis and was a dorm master. And it was my first residential experience because I never went to camp as a child. So it was a different experience, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the residential aspect of the school. And then as it turned out, I ended up staying. I was there for 21 years and saw the school go through a tremendous amount of growth from being an all-boys school to a co-ed school. I was the chairman of the science department. I ended up coaching both the girls and boys tennis teams, and we had a tremendous amount of success there. So my entire adult life has been dealing with children. And then in the 80s, the owners of Carmel Valley Tennis Camp asked me if I'd want to be involved in the summer. And so I started working there in the summers, and that's actually Susan and I met at Carmel Valley Tennis Camp. We met, and then we bought the business. During my teaching years, I also went back and I got a master's in biology. So, one of our things we say is, well, people ask, how did we get to this point of we're, running a tennis camp? Well, my degree's in biology and Susan's degree's in Russian studies. So of course we run a tennis camp. But
that seems like all of our stories. Like, no, you know what? But I want to say, I think that part of the reason your camp is so phenomenal and very different from most sports camps is because of your background. And you are much more interested in not just tennis, but sort of the whole child and their development all together. So I want you to share a little bit about what is different about Carmel Valley Tennis Camp from a lot of the other sports camp programs that are around.
Why don't you start?
I would say one of the biggest things is we do own our own facility, which we're incredibly fortunate for that. We were able to build the facility and that we do own it, so we have complete control over it. Which is, fabulous. So that it's very, it's a very safe environment. It is the only people on the camp or our school or on our camp is the campers, the counselors. Our home is there. So, and the other director, who is our daughter, Amy, is her home is there in the summertime. And so that is actually a big difference. We're not on a college campus. We're not on a school campus. So that makes a huge difference. And I would say the other big thing is this is what we do. We run the camp. It's not just a summer job for us as far as that our real job is, coaching teams or doing whatever. So our focus is, and it's also very much on the whole child, which is what the whole program is all about. I mean, our motto is tennis and a whole lot more. So we have a lot of other, we've got, we have a ropes course, we have an archery range, we have a pool, we have basketball, we have arts and crafts, we have evening activities. We have very much all those other activities, which we think is really important. And again, in dealing with, because tennis is great. We're big believers in tennis in all sports, and we believe in a balance also. And it's just fun to see kids being able to have fun, play the game of tennis, learn more about tennis, and also have these great connections with other campers. We're electronics free, as all of our, the way camps are and the other camps. We're very unusual in that as far as for a sports camp, but we're big believers in that and love to see the transformation of the kids without, taking a break from their technology. And our counselors don't have any technology either. So makes it a wonderful environment. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love the word balance. I think that a lot of parents have lost sight of balance when it comes to sports. And so I know that you're big proponents of one of the things we've talked about before. Talk about your kind of philosophy about sports and, how many sports kids should participate in and that kind of thing. Because I think it's kind of unique coming from your, tennis background, your feeling about that.
Well, I'm just a big believer in sports in general. And we just happen to both have the background with tennis, but we're really big believers in kids playing lots of different sports. And it's interesting. There was an article we're going to put on our Facebook page that just was in the Tennis Industry Association magazine, and it's about how tennis is such a great sport as a crossover. And it lists 7 different sports like golf and soccer and even football and baseball, but how things that you do in tennis cross over to those sports and how those sports cross over to tennis. And so it's funny, we just ran into a mom on the street down here, we're in San Francisco right now, and whose 2 kids have come to camp for a number of years, and her son is a very good tennis player, but he's not playing any tennis because he's playing soccer. And she goes, I'm so sorry he's not playing tennis. And it's like, are you kidding? That's so great. He's playing soccer. It's fantastic. And on top of it, he's also an exceptional golfer. So, I mean, he's the profile of what we'd like to see for all kids, that they're playing. Yeah, they like tennis, but they like they like soccer. They like golf. They like to play sports, because that's, the more sports you play, the better chance as an adult that you'll still be able to play a sort of, you can pick a sport you want to play and try different ones. So that's because again, as you've talked about in your book, the Happy Camper book, what we're trying to do is raise happy, healthy adults. And how do you do that?
Yes. Oh gosh, I just love that. And I think a lot of times, I think you're just so unique. Again, just going back to why you're such a different kind of sports camp is that you're promoting just kind of the physical activity, the fun of tennis, the competition, but also you have all these other things going on, and you're thinking more than just about what the kids are doing while they're on the tennis court with you. Whereas I think a lot of the camps, the sports camps, they're sponsored by these big organizations that know a lot about the sport, but they don't necessarily know a lot about kids and how to help kids make friends while playing their sport and how to learn better sportsmanship. Talk about what you say to kids, like when they're finished playing for the day or as they leave the court, because I think it's really helpful for parents to hear just sort of the words that you use to encourage kids without being so focused on kind of the scores and that kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
I'll just say one thing first because I know Steve's going to talk about that. But sportsmanship is a cornerstone of our program, and it always has been at Carmel Valley Tennis Camp, which is also, which is kind of the whole where we'll build, and Steve will talk about how we deal with it. But sportsmanship is absolutely. And, we really feel probably one of the strong things that we do is help kids with competition. I mean, we're dealing with a competitive sport. And so we really do, we deal with that a lot in talking with the kids about it. Our counselors do, because they're all playing college tennis. So they're playing a competitive sport, but it's how you deal with competition because we understand it. And
I'd say the thing that we've grown into doing, it started when I was coaching high school tennis, and I'm not giving myself any credit. I just kind of stumbled upon things, something that worked, and finding things that worked and finding things that didn't work. And what I found was, kids are always, you play a match. If you win, you feel good. If you lose, you feel bad. I mean, it's human nature. It's not like, I lost. I feel fantastic. I just lost a match. I mean, you're putting yourself on the line, especially in tennis. If you're playing singles, you're the only person out there. I mean, it's similar to boxing in that regard. I mean, Andre Agassi talked about that quite a bit. The only other sport that's like that is boxing. You're the only person. There's not a coach with you. There's nobody to talk to you. So what I developed and what we do at camp is when kids finish playing a match, we never ask them, did you win? Because you always know whether somebody won or lost. But the first question we ask is, how did you play? And then because what we want them doing is thinking about how they played themselves within the match. How did you play? Then the next question is, what did you do well today? So they're thinking about things that they really had, that they accomplished, that they set out to do. Well, I really want to get more first serves in. And did I? Yeah, I did. Okay, well, that's something you can feel good about, even if you lost the match. And then the third question is, what did you have trouble with? Okay, what is it that you feel that you need to work on, that in your lessons tomorrow you can ask your counselor, can we work on, I had trouble with my backhand. Can we work with my backhand today? So you have specific things that you can then go to, so that the match itself becomes a learning experience, as opposed to simply putting yourself on the line and walking around at the end of the day, I'm a winner or I'm a loser. I mean, because at the end of the day, who's going to remember? At the end of the week, who remembers who won and who lost? I mean, nobody does. So it really is a matter of how are you going to get better at playing this game and developing your own style of play and your own level of success based upon your measurements of your own play, not somebody else's measurements of your play.
And we train our staff. This is what our counselors do, because they're coaches of the team and they're teaching, the lessons and stuff. And so in our training, we go through all this, and they know that basically how that's how we handle it at Carmel Valley Tennis Camp when kids are playing matches, and how the counselors deal with it afterwards.
Oh, I just love that so much, because it's not just about tennis. You're teaching these kids how to deal with life. Because life is like that too, whether it's a test that, didn't go so well, at the end of the day, if you say, well, what went well on it? What can you do to do better next time? It's just this way of thinking that's different from kind of how our culture, is like win, win, win. And so I love that you're teaching kids something much more than just tennis. It's sort of a way to approach both things that go well and things that didn't go the way you wanted. How do you learn from that? How do you grow? So what a great and fabulous thing. And I'm guessing that maybe other programs maybe don't do that as much. I don't know, but I'm guessing that that's not as much of a focus at other sports camps.
There's some good, there's some really good
and there's
out there, really good pros.
And I'll tell you, one of the guys I know I learned a lot from was an opposing coach when I was at Cal, was Dick Gould, who was the coach at Stanford men's tennis for many, many years. And I mean, they won, I think in his tenure there, won, I don't know if it was 17 national championships. It's an incredible number of national championships. But Dick, we've spent enough time talking with him because he's a good friend. He is all about the development of the whole person. I mean, when he dealt with his players at Stanford, and he's dealing with really high-level players, John McEnroe played for him. And he knew how to deal with these guys without it just being all technical tennis, but because the game is so much a mental game, which is really, life is all such a mental game.
Yes.
And so if you get your head in the right place, you can be successful, whether it be on the tennis court or whether it be in business, whatever it is that you might be doing.
That is such a quotable quote right there. I'm gonna have to go back and type that one in, because life is a mental game, and just like your whole thing, it is so true. And I love how, I think one of the things that for this series, one of the main goals is letting people know that when kids go to camps that like yours, that have really a lot of intention behind the way you do things, they don't just learn the skill that parents maybe think they're going there for. Sure, they're going to improve their tennis skills while they're with you, but they're getting a lot more out of it. And boy, if they learn better how to handle their emotions and their mental game in tennis, that definitely will translate to helping them in all other areas of their life, right?
Right. Which is one of the things that we think is so great about tennis. I mean, being an individual sport, it really, every person that goes out there to play it, we talk about being vulnerable. I mean, you really are. You're walking out there. It's like, am I going to win? Am I going to lose? How do I look? Everybody's looking at me. I mean, you have all those. There isn't a team, which a team is wonderful, but there's also, talk about kind of developing grit. It is a great game for that. And we also deal with, I mean, we understand, you you come off the court, because we both played junior tennis. Remember, coming off a court at 11 years old, just sobbing because I lost a match. I mean, we understand that.
We've been there.
And it's okay. And we meet the kids where they are. It's like, let them be, let that be, and then work from there to help it again, to deal with those, different emotions and to help put it in perspective. And, because those are all, that's all a big part of growing up, but it is easy, that's one of the things I think that we do deal with. And we get to see our counselors are all college players, but we really look for really incredibly well. We've got incredible counselors. We do a real intensive, basically, interview process just to get the right fit. And what we're looking for is really well-rounded people. I mean, they're playing college tennis, but they maybe want to be teachers or pediatricians, but they also do, whether they like music, whether they're well-rounded people and have excelled, so that those are the kind of role models that we're looking at, because then we see the kids who are campers who are looking, they have these, the tennis counselors also have their room counselors, they're running the evening activities, and they see these totally cool college kids that are also great tennis players, and they're just great role models. So we think that's actually a really, really hugely important, part of what it is we do too. I mean, we know they like us, but
yeah, sure. Okay, before we get too far, because I want to make sure you tell some of the details about Carmel Valley Tennis Camp. For example, the ages of the kids who come, how good they need to be at tennis, the session length. So just kind of the logistics. If someone's thinking about sending their child, why don't you just talk about, how it works? How long do kids come for and all that?
Sure. Okay, we're ages 10 to 17, 10 to 18, 10 to 18. And they are in the camp. We just has to be turning 10 in the year that they're coming. And we have, we're half girls, half boys. We're a small camp. We have 53 campers a session. And it's half girls, half boys. And we have all levels of players. We have, more beginning players.
28 of one sex and 25 of the other. So we don't really split a kid in half with 53 kids.
Thank you for clarifying that.
And we have 1 and 2 week sessions, but we have beginning through ranked tournament players. I mean, we have kids, because we have 10 different tennis groups. So that allows us to have, the more beginning groups. There's always there's a beginning group, 1 or 2 beginning groups. There's some advanced beginning groups. But with 10 different tennis groups, because there's 5 in a group. And so it allows us to have, also the other kind of neat thing is you can have 2 friends who can come together. One who's playing tennis all year long, who is tennis is a big part of their life, but they can come with their friend who maybe is just, plays when they come to camp, or it's a sport for a lifetime, so they want to learn how to play, but they wouldn't be in the same tennis groups, but they can come to the same camp. So we can accommodate the kids that are, again, playing middle school tennis, playing high school tennis, playing tournaments, and the kids that are more beginner. We have 1 and 2 week sessions. We have 2 1-week sessions and then 4 2-week sessions. We're actually big believers in the 2-week session. The longest day that we have that we limit it to is basically 4 weeks. We think that's as long as that's, and kids do combine sessions, which is fine. But it's long. We limit it basically just to those, to a 4-week stay would be the longest.
Okay, well, that's terrific. And it's really nice, I think, for parents to understand that their child doesn't have to, it's a great place to go if the kid has an interest in tennis, you've been playing in your family, and they just want to play some more, because what a great place to learn and just be with a group that's similar level. It sounds like they're not going to be playing against the kid who's, a pro or whatever. So it sounds like they'll get to play with other kids of similar level.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the thing, just adding to that, the way we set up our program, the kids have 3 hours of lessons a day, but they're not consecutive. So with 10 tennis groups, 5 groups are on at 9, 11, and 1 for an hour, and 5 groups are on at 10, 12, and 2 for an hour. And then at 3 o'clock, we have an all-camp meeting. We have some tennis topic that we discuss each day. The first day is always sportsmanship. And then we have match play. And Susan and I put the matches together. And we always tell the kids what we're after. The matches are just 1 set in length, but we're after trying to get scores that are going to come out to be 6-4 or 7-5 or 7-6. That's that's the hope. Occasionally we get matches that come out 6-0. If that happens, that's fine. We're the ones setting those matches up and trying to make sure the matches are going to be as close as possible, because the closer the competition, the better chance that both kids are going to be able to improve their game. And if kids want to play more, they can play more because we own the facility. I mean, it's not like, well, you're going to get kicked off because some adult has reserved the court. No, if you want to play more than a set, you want to play 2 sets, 3 sets, not a problem. We can set that up for you.
That's great. That is terrific. Well, I was thinking of another question that, and now I just lost it, about the, you're talking about the tournament. Oh, the match play. I was thinking about, as a parent watching sports, how it's not fun watching games that are so one-sided, regardless of which side your kid is on. So if your kid's on the team that's losing, whatever it is, 10-0 in like water polo or something, it's not fun, nor is it fun when they're winning by that much. Just like professional sports events aren't fun to watch. No one wants to watch a football game that's like 35-0. You're like, oh, right. Done with that. Right. So it's really true that for kids for you to do that planning to get them to actually have really close matches, yeah, they're going to grow, and it's so much more fun.
Well, and the thing is that some of my favorite matches, I mean, that I've seen are when you've got, 2 little, 10-year-olds that don't have much experience playing the game, but they've gotten to the point where they can play a match, and they're playing, and it's a struggle just to get the ball over, but they're getting the ball over back and forth, and then they end up with their friends who are watching, and then everybody's so excited because they finished the match, and I mean, it's just the best. They come off and they're so excited. We played a match and we finished. It was so great.
And what we do, it's like, if for the kids that have not played, I mean, we do have some kids that really are coming in and they've maybe played other sports, but that they haven't played much. And so they maybe don't even know how to keep score. So we start out, the match is a 1-set match. So they maybe are going to start at 4-all. So they're literally only going to play 2 full games, but the counselors are walking them through that. So we set it up so that they are challenged, but they're not discouraged. Or do you know what I mean? It's like baby steps. Mm-hmm. Whereas the kids that are playing tournaments, because the kids that are, we do have some kids that like to play tennis all day long. So, and they can do that. They can, they have their 3 hours of lessons. Then they want to go to center court for extra help. They can do that. And then they want to play a couple matches. We can accommodate that. And then we have the kids that are there, and it's like their 3 hours lessons, that's fine. They'll play one, they'll play one match. Maybe they're going to play a couple games, and that's perfect for them. And that's all they want, so that's great. And they're all improving, but they all have different levels of, interest, which is all fine.
I want to just shift gears a little bit, because one of the things for this series, I really want to share the expertise of camp directors with parents. And I think one area that you can really share a lot in is how parents can best support and encourage their kids in sports. So what are some advice that you have for parents who have kids who are athletes, whether it's tennis or any other sport? How can they really encourage their child with their sports?
I would say just the biggest thing is just be very supportive, very supportive, encouraging, be not, it's hard, not to it's hard to watch a match. I know that. I mean, as a parent, we've been there. I know that it's hard, and I know it's hard for parents. But the biggest thing is, and actually, when it's, don't watch, I mean, actually chat or whatever. I mean, it was like Steve and I had a very different experience. I mean, when we were playing out, my parents never went to matches. I mean, they never.
My parents never did either. My dad was a coach.
I don't think that. I mean, I can count the times maybe they, we played a lot. We each played lots of tournaments and played a ton. And it was like there was basically we were with friends, and there would be somebody that would take us, or one parent would take, or whatever, carpool. But it was parents. That's changed a lot. But so I would say that, but just to encourage them, because the thing with any sport, it has to the child has to like it, and it has to be fun. And so I think the role of the parent is basically, but then provided, I mean, if they want, lessons and to figure out, I am a big believer that privates are great, but that's not what it's better to be in group lessons where they're meeting other kids, where they're having fun, where they're understanding what the game is all about. I mean, if they're going to play a couple times a week, have it be, in a group or maybe one private, but just to take private lessons all the time isn't very realistic, and it's not going to build any confidence in kids, I don't believe. I mean, I think you hit a lot of balls. The fine tuning and I know people disagree with me on this, but I believe the fine tuning comes after. It's all gross motor in the beginning, and it's, see ball, hit ball, get it over the net. There's obviously different ways you can set it up so that there's, instruction on what results you want to produce, not necessarily how, the refined technical part of it. That comes later as kids. But I think because so as a parent, I would think just kind of keeping all that, if you're not a tennis player, haven't been involved in sports, basically you're just encouraging your child. I mean, it's almost like the same thing like within school. You don't want to be too involved and overly involved, or figure that, if the child wins or loses, it's a reflection on you. That's how.
Yeah, I would say too with the big. I think one of the big things for parents with their kids is let the kid be the driver of the sport. In other words, don't put yourself in a position where, well, my kid really seems to like tennis, so I'm going to sign him up for a series of 6 months of lessons because that's going to be the best thing for him. Let the kid be the driver. If the kid says, Jake, I kind of like tennis. I mean, kid, is there something else that we can do? Well, yeah, would you get in a conversation with your child about, okay, well, do you want to take some lessons? Well, I don't know if I really do. I want to play more with some friends. Okay, well, we can be a part of this club. Maybe we can join, you can have a junior membership at this club where you can play with your friends, or there's other people that you can play with. But the child has to be the driver of the sport. If it's a parent saying, okay, now you got to go do this lesson, now you got to go do this lesson, what you're going to do, I believe, you're going to drive the child away from the sport. I mean, because they'll get to a point where it's like it becomes a job and it's not fun anymore for them. It's like, well, I got to go to my lesson. I got to go to my lesson. I mean, the number of folks that become professional tennis players in terms of percentage of the number of people that play tennis is incredibly, incredibly small. So, I mean, what's your goal for you with your child, with the sport, whatever the sport might be? Because, I mean, we see parents coming and they've got their daughters, their daughter likes soccer. Well, she's 9 turning 10 and she's been on a traveling team for 3 years with soccer, and she's got to play all year long. And it's really a struggle to get her away for 2 weeks to come to tennis camp. Well, to me, that's getting the priorities kind of screwed up for the child. And we see that so much today with no matter what the sport is, whether it be tennis, whether it be soccer, whether it be basketball, these traveling teams and this supposed need for the child to play all year long that particular sport. That concerns me that what we're doing is we're going to end up driving kids away from sports. And again, all we want to do is we want these kids that when they're adults, they can still enjoy sports, whatever sport it is. It doesn't have to be tennis. It can be any sport, but a sport that they can go out and have fun with.
Yeah, boy, isn't that the truth? More, not just with sports, like just enjoying things and doing things for the enjoyment of it, as opposed to always having it be for some like other, trying to be the best or trying to get a scholarship. Just how about, do you like playing this sport? Are you having fun with it? Let's go do it. And when you were talking about the club thing, you can go play tennis at like the local public schools and parks for free. Like we used to go to our family, and you can just go out, grab your rackets and go out there. And it's a really great family activity. And so that's one of the things about tennis that's different from other sports is you really can, the kids can get a lot better than you at some point, but you can still have them serve to you, and, you can still go out there and play around. So I think it really is true. Just it's hard to keep it in perspective when you're a parent and you see a spark of skill. But I love your philosophy that let's have them have fun with it, enjoy it, see where it goes. And, even if they just enjoy playing tennis their whole life, that's a great outcome.
Right.
Yeah.
And one other thing I want to go back to, too, is with the parents and, how you deal with your child playing on a team, and I mean, it has become, I've seen it over the years where I taught school. But even more so now where it's like a requirement. If your child's playing in a game, it's a requirement the parent is there. And if the parent isn't there, then their child knows, well, my mom or dad isn't there, but everybody else's mom or dad is there. And that's, I don't know, I would have loved, I saw this in particular when I was coaching girls tennis, where I knew that the best thing I could do once I got the girls on the court was to engage the moms in conversation, so I kept them away from watching the matches. I mean, that was the best thing I could do for their daughters, because as long as I did that, their daughter simply was able to go and play her match, you know, because unfortunately you have a parent that's in a set, especially when it's a single, you're out there by yourself and you've got a parent on the sideline, and every time you miss a shot, it's like, you know, the poor child's looking over at their parent and is not able to simply focus on playing the match, you know, him or herself. I mean,
but it's hard. And I have to say, parents are doing the best they can.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's absolutely.
I do that thing all the time. Oh no, that's what I have done in my kids' sports. And it's like a visceral, you can't help yourself. Right. It's when you're the parent. I agree. It's like there's sometimes, and this is one of the magic things about camp, is because the parents aren't there, is one of the reasons why kids can have all these great experiences. They're not feeling, when they're out there playing, they're just playing. They have no worries about any of the people watching, because their camp counselor or coach is different from a parent.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, and I agree. It's really hard as a parent not to do that, but just to give your child some space, and maybe sometimes go watch one of the other kids' matches. So, you know, if you're at the tennis court, maybe your chair doesn't have to be planted right there the whole time. You know, just go get a coffee with a friend halfway through or something. Just give your kid a little. Because I mean, I have one son who literally says to me, "Oh, don't come," and I'm like, is it because of my, you know?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it is the toughest thing. I mean, for a parent, it's the toughest thing to see your child, you know, having any kind of difficulty. I mean, that's the big, you know, I love the things that you talked about in your book in Happy Campers about those things of being able to let your child go, because it's. I mean, we're raising them. I mean. It's the most challenging job you'll ever have in your life, and all you're doing is trying to raise them so they leave you.
It's a weird concept, but I think that that camps like yours really help with that. It just provides a little bit of an added element of giving your child a little more space, a little more self-reliance. You know, it's great. Well, is there anything else that either of you would like to share about Carmel Valley Tennis Camp that, you know, if parents are thinking about sending their child to Carmel Valley Tennis Camp, what should they do? Are you available to chat with them? You know, what's the next step for someone who's interested in your program?
Well, we have our website, and that's basically that we have all the information about camp there, and that's where somebody would sign up for camp. We're also completely available to talk. People talk to either, because we talk to parents that are interested in camp that want to know more about the program. Steve and I do that. Amy also does that, who's the other director. She does a lot of that, actually, of talking with parents, because she's the age of our. She has 2 children herself, so she does a lot with talking with parents, either through you know, by email or by phone, on concerns, whether it have to do with diet or food or all those different, you know, things that they want to know. Our website does have it gives a pretty good, we just actually redid it. And we really feel that it does really represent who we are and what we do. That was our intention with the new website. And we think, so I would say that's a great avenue. And to see, you know, as far as what the camp's all about. And
well, I'm just going to say that, you know, we've worked obviously with you, Audrey, and so much enjoy all the stuff that we've done with you. But I'd say one of the big things that's been that we really have latched onto is a whole sense of connecting the kids, and especially the kids that are coming in and they don't know anybody, and the matter of getting the room group so that they really do bond as a group, and developing their own code for how the room is going to run throughout the course of the session. You know, being led by their counselor, but the kids are the ones that are developing their own code for the room, because there are 7 campers and a counselor in a room, and there's only 1 shower and there's 2 sinks and 1 toilet, and how are they going to keep it clean, and who's going to do, you know, what's the shower schedule, doing all those things that are all about group living, which we're an individual sport, but you're learning how to be a part of a group, so, and making those connections. So I'd say that's a really important part of what we do as Carmel Valley Tennis Camp.
It's a huge component of camps, because I know there's so many of your camp, there's so many of the general camps, the weight camps that actually do that, and they do it so well. And it has just been fabulous to bring that into our camp, into a sports camp, because we are dealing with kids, and it's made a huge difference, in the run groups and how the cooperation, the friendships that are made, and it's really been a wonderful part, because we look to actually definitely to the weight camps of all the things that we've learned from the general camps and the camps that are really well run. And so we feel very fortunate to be a part of that.
Well, and I think the reason your camp is so fabulous is because you've been open to things outside of just tennis, outside of the tennis world. You're looking at the greater camp world and how you can impact these kids positively. So it's just really awesome. So I hope lots of parents watch this and check out Carmel Valley Tennis Camp, and tell me where your campers come from, because I think that might be helpful to people to know, do kids come from far away? Like, where do your campers come from?
Sure.
So about 70% of our kids come from Northern California. And then probably another, 6-7% come from Southern California. And then the remainder, so a quarter of the camp, we have every year, because we do track this, and we have anywhere from 14 to 16 different states represented during the course of the summer. Doesn't mean that we've got a ton of kids from each of these states, but maybe there's 30 kids coming from 16 states. Again, not in every session, but over the spread over the summer. And then every summer we'll have anywhere from 8 to 11 different countries that are represented. And so that's one of the things we really enjoy about the camp, is that we do have the diversity of our campers. And then on top of that, because we're dealing with college tennis players, college tennis in the U.S. today has become very international, and there are a lot of international kids playing college tennis. So we generally have a fair number of international counselors on our staff.
That are going to school in the U.S. They're playing tennis in the U.S., which brings a wonderful. The kids love that. I mean, we have Americans and we have past campers that are on our staff too, which is great. But it is fun to have that, those different countries. We had counselors from last time, we have from England, from.
For the first time, we had somebody from Laos.
Yeah.
From Laos, of all places. Yeah, her dad was a tennis pro in Laos. I mean, we had somebody from South Africa, somebody from Zimbabwe, from England, from Brazil. I mean, from Italy. We had
a top player from Italy who's playing tennis in the U.S., so we've got these incredibly cool, great kids.
Yeah, that's just awesome. Well, this has been so much fun talking to you again about Carmel Valley Tennis Camp. And I hope lots of parents and kids check out your website and your program and everything else. And I just want to thank you for joining me for this Happy Campers interview series.
Well, thank you so much for including us.
Yes, thank you, Audrey.
Okay, we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me for this Happy Campers interview bonus podcast episode. If you're interested in learning more about how you can bring home some of the magic of summer camp, I'd love for you to pick up a copy of my book, Happy Campers, 9 Summer Camp Secrets for Raising Kids Who Become Thriving Adults. It's available for pre-order now and comes out on May 7th. And you can find more information about it on my website by going to happycampersbook.com. To thank you for pre-ordering the book, I have a couple of fun freebies. The first of which is the first chapter, Camp Secret Number 1, Connection Comes First. I'll also send you an invitation to join my private Facebook group that's called the Happy Campers Book Club, where we'll be sharing resources, videos, and conversation about raising kids who become thriving adults. To access these freebies, simply pre-order your copy of the book and then fill out the form at happycampersbook.com. Together, we can spread the happiness of summer camp to the whole world.